Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today what we'll do is we're going to continue with that doorbell. It's going to be a very quick video. All we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up a automation using Node-RED and maybe within Home Assistant itself, just to go ahead and trigger a notification to our phone once the doorbell has been pressed. It's going to be a fairly quick video. I will set up a additional video in the future on setting up different methods of notifications to your Android phone, but this is just going to be a basic overview of using Node-RED to set up a trigger notification when that button is being pressed. Now you can go into depth into it, but for this one we're just going to keep it real simple and just quickly go ahead and set up that notification for us. So with that said, let's quickly go ahead and take a look. There we go, guys. So we're back into Home Assistant now. As you can see, everything still looks fairly the same. The only difference is that I renamed that sensor to the kitchen sensor, so it's listed right here. That one is the multi-sensor we set up in the last video with everything built into the doorbell. I did add a additional contact sensor, so the same as the door sensor, because there were still space left and the window is right next to it. So I went ahead and added a additional one in there. So we have the door sensor and the window sensor with that. Now, as you can see, I do not have the ring or the bell itself listed in here. That's because we don't really need it to show up within our interface. So this video is going to work in conjunction with the previous video, as well as the one with setting up the add-ons and installing Node-RED. And I'm also going to go ahead and assume that you did go ahead and set up your phone in the presence detection video as well, as we'll be working mostly off of that. So right here, we're in Home Assistant, so all we're going to go ahead and do is click on the Node-RED option right here. Now do keep in mind, you do need to remember the name of that specific sensor or the doorbell, the name that you gave it. So if we go back into ESP Home and I can go ahead and edit the kitchen multi, you'll see we do have that ring. It's the name of the sensor is just ring, and that's the one that we'll go ahead and use. So can go back to Node-RED and we're going to go ahead and open up a new flow. So as you can see, we only have that one in here, which we have set up previously in the first automation video that we did. So we can go ahead and add an additional one. So right in here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do exactly the same. It's going to be event state. And if we double click on it, you'll see it already have Home Assistant listed in here. Entity ID. Now I know the entity ID that I'm looking for is called ring. That's the name of that sensor that we set up. There we go. It's binary sensor ring. And if the state is, so currently what happens is mine is inverted, so it's always on. And as soon as it gets pressed, it turns off and then back on again. So mine is going to be if the state is off. If the state is off. So as soon as the state changes for that specific button press and that LED starts flickering, as soon as it goes off, it'll activate this specific event. So if it is off, so there we go. So we added that in there. This one is only going to use two things. So we have the state, so we have that entity. So as soon as that button goes ahead and turn to off, all we do is we'll just go ahead and trigger an event or call a service. So right here, you see we have call service. I'm going to go ahead and drag that in here. Going to double click on it. And as you can see, we can give it a name. We can rename all of these. We can go ahead and use the domain right here. So what we'll use for this one is as soon as that button is being pressed, we want it to go ahead and send a notification to our phone or the selected phones that we have added. So if we click in here, you see we have a couple of options. I'm going to go ahead and use the notify option right here because we're going to notify a mobile phone. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on there. Then in the service, you can go ahead and select the application for that specific phone that you've set up. So I'm just going to use my phone right here. Entity ID, I'm going to go ahead and leave blank. So in this instance, I'm not going to need it because we already selected the phone itself. So we have identified which phone needs to be notified by this. So I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to leave the entity ID, and then we have the data in here again. What I'll do is I'll leave my code that I use down below, and you can use exactly the same and modify it to your needs. So I'll just go ahead and export this, as well as leave the code that I entered in this specific box. I'm just going to go ahead and edit this in here. As I've said previously, it's fairly easy. The best way to edit this is just go ahead and click on these. I already have some code in here. I'm just going to go ahead and paste it, but it is extremely simple. So what we want to happen is, if this button is being pressed and that state turns to off, it'll trigger the notify service, and it'll notify the phone that we have just selected. And then all we do is we just go ahead and say it sends a message, someone is at the door, and then the title is ring. That's just going to be the title. It'll say ring, and then it'll say someone is at the door as the message itself. And that's it. That's the most basic way you can go ahead and set up that notification. So with that in there, we can go ahead and hit done. And then again, we can go ahead and hit done right here. And now obviously we need to go ahead and link these. So you'll see we have two options. So in here, we have if the state is off. So as soon as that button goes to off, it'll go ahead and trigger that. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it. If the statement is true, so if it goes to off, it'll go ahead and trigger that notification. That's it. That's all we need to go ahead and trigger a notification on our phone. So once again, fairly simple. Just notify in the domain, selected our application, so our mobile phone, and then entered in the very basic code in here, and I'll leave that down below. Now in the future, we will go ahead, and if I get my cameras coming, I'll go ahead and add in some additional options where it'll send us a screenshot of who it is, so take a screen cap and send all that information to as a notification. But for now, we'll just use a very basic one that'll notify you as soon as the doorbell is being pressed. So with that said, all we need to do is we can go ahead and just hit the deploy button. So remember, as every time you do make a change, you need to go ahead and use the deploy option right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit deployed. It is giving me this message. That's just because I do have some unused entities, but that's fine. I just deployed it, and we're going to see that it shows that it is connected, and the notify options should be available. So let's just see if I can quickly go ahead and press the alarm that I have. There we go. As you heard, I had some difficulty with the signal, but it did go ahead and pick up that. And as you'll see, it'll say it is connected, and it did notify the service. And this time, is it correct? But okay. So if we go ahead and take a look right here, it'll tell us that someone is at the door and ring. So there's not a lot of information in here. This is just a basic notification that I'll say ring and someone is at the door, because that's exactly what we added in here in our message, and the title, someone is at the door. Now in the future, if I do go ahead and add some cameras to my home automation, we'll be able to go ahead and add that in there as well. But for now, we're going to leave it as is. I did have a question previously on how you can disable some of your automations. So if you do have them listed in here, all you can do is you can just go ahead and double click. And as you can see, it'll give you the name of that specific flow. And then if you'd like to disable it, you can just go ahead and click on the enabled option right here. And now you'll see it'll show disabled, and you'll see it shows that disabled icon right there. That is disabled, and that's how you go ahead and disable it. Just remember, as soon as you have disabled it, you will need to go ahead and deploy again, so it does in fact disable that automation. So as you can see, it has successfully been deployed. And now we can go into Home Assistant itself and use their built-in notifications or automations functions that I have with the GUI, their user interface. So to get in there, all we need to do is we can just go ahead and click on configuration right here. And then you'll see we have automations listed right here. We can go ahead and click on that. I do have some tests that I did and how to trigger that phone notifications. However, we can just go ahead and add a new one in here. I'm not going to use the assistant, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the skip right there. We don't need any help with setting up this notification. So fairly simple. Right here we have the automation name, so we can call it doorbell, and then you can give it a description if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it as is. So exactly the same process. We have our triggers, so what's going to go ahead and trigger this specific automation. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and leave it at state, and then it's going to ask us for the entity. Now remember, we called that ring, so I'm going to go ahead and select ring, and as you can see, it does show that it is actually still on, so the status is on. And we're going to say if it goes from on to off, and that's it. We add into the trigger. So as soon as that sensor goes from on to off, and our conditions, we're going to go ahead and leave it as is. Now you can go ahead and adjust it to only work within specific times or add additional filters, but we can skip this section. We're going to go ahead straight to the actions option. And right in here, we're going to go ahead and call service. We can go ahead and leave it at call service. And then the service, we're going to go ahead and select. If we go a bit down, you should see your phone listed right in here. There we go. I can go ahead and select my phone listed right there. And then we have exactly the same service data in here. So remember, exactly the same message that I did in Node-RED. Add in exactly the same information. You can even copy that exact same code and it'll also accept that. But they did try and make it a bit easier. So you just type in the message, colon, the message you'd like it to send, and then the title. And it doesn't matter if you add the title first or the message first, it'll go ahead and add it in the correct order. So the title will be ring, so the subject basically is ring, and then the message is someone is at the door. And that's it. That's all you do to add in your basic automation. And as I've said in upcoming videos, I'll go ahead and add in some IP camera or have it show us some photos. So maybe add a camera to the door and then have that take a snapshot and send that with the notification. But unfortunately, I don't have a camera, so I can't show you guys with that at the moment. But we can go ahead and hit the save button right there. And that should be it. Now this is called doorbell. So if we go back, that should have saved. So if we go back, as you can see, it is active and it has never been triggered. Now a cool thing within Home Assistant, you can actually go ahead and test the automations without actually activating or using the triggers itself. So if I click right here, I have a execute option right here, and that'll go ahead and trigger the automation without me needing to go ahead and pressing the doorbell itself. Okay, so that didn't work because I did a bunch of test notifications. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just use a different phone I have here real quick, or my girlfriend's phone real quick, and I'll just show you that it does work, and I'll also show you how you can go ahead and add more than one device. So to add an additional phone, all we need to do is we can just go ahead and add an additional action. And we can do exactly the same. I can copy the exact same information and just paste it in the data, and then just select the additional phone that I have, or the additional app that I have connected. So I'm going to go down and just look for her phone. I think it's that one. Hit save. And now if we go ahead back and trigger that notification, and I'll go ahead and view. So what I'll do is let's go ahead. I don't have this one set up in the camera itself, so I'm just going to go ahead and execute this real quick. And there we go. Now, I'm not sure how easy this is going to be for you guys to see, but right there, it should show someone is at the door. Now, what it does is as soon as you open up that notification, it's just going to go ahead and open up Home Assistant. It won't take you to a specific page at the moment. Their Android notifications is still a bit limited, but they are working on it, and they're definitely working on some improvements. But as I've said, in the future videos, we may go ahead and take a look at adding in Telegram. And there we go, guys. So that's going to be it for this one. There was just a quick follow-up on the previous one. If you guys do get stuck or don't know what to do after you've added the doorbell in, you'll know you can go ahead and just set up those automations. Now, as you guys have seen, there is a limit to the amount of notifications you can receive. It looks like they're limited to 150 notifications a day. That is quite a lot, and it's per device, so it's not per account. So each device can only receive 150 notifications in a day. But that should be it for this one. We'll go ahead and set up additional notification options in the future. I know I prefer using Telegram, as I have a bit more experience using that for notifications, and that's definitely a option that we'll take a look at as well in the future. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Should be it.